outside. Oh, don't do this. Yeah, it's playing fine. God. Well, welcome to Noisy Reloved Guitars workshop, and Mark's back with us today, and we're doing a few things. But the first one I want to show you. Oh, I'll turn my phone to airplane mode.
I'll do that very shortly.
Yeah. So first up is yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one, but it's an interesting one. This is come down from Dave, and it's a Les Paul copy, and it's interesting that it's got Gibson written on the top. Now, before, it's a very controversial subject, the whole Chibson thing, and I've set up a couple before, and it's the subject vexes some people so much that they don't even think it's right that someone like me should set them up for someone else, irrespective of how they came about them. And I think that's a bit unrealistic in some ways. For me, I don't feel comfortable turning down somebody who comes with a guitar for servicing, but I also understand that the point that people make, which is it is an illegal, the Chibsons are illegal counterfeits, if you like. Whoa. Mark's setting up a time-lapse camera. Yeah, they are illegal counterfeits, and you have a whole body of people online who say, well, dude, who gives a damn, Gibson are a rip-off company, all that kind of stuff. And the problem is, I know that if any of you, any people who have that view, try to manufacture or make something, set up a company, go into business with a partner or whatever, you'd be keen enough to protect your own intellectual property, and actually you'd hate it, really hate it, if somebody suddenly started ripping off whatever it is that you specialised in and making money and undermining your market. So I have to say, if something is, if we live in a world of genuine free trade or cross-border trade, then I am in favour of trademarks and copyrights, and I don't think infringing them by the Chinese companies who basically are sticking a finger up to the West and saying who gives a damn. I don't think that is fair, and it's kind of commercially wrong. It's illegal, and I back those people who say that. But also, for me, I have to say, personal level, I don't get anything out of pretending to be something I'm not, and likewise that doesn't appeal to me personally. I wouldn't waste time putting a sticker on something, and I certainly wouldn't manufacture it even if I had the chance to. So having said that, this isn't one of those, funnily enough. This is not a Chinese made copy that's deliberately infringing Gibson's intellectual property. This is actually a legal Les Paul copy. I'm not sure whether it's possibly a vintage, possibly an Epiphone, possibly something else similarly well known, but it's been customised by an owner, and there are a number of ways that you can tell this. It's been reasonably well done, but it's actually been hand painted on the front, then the decals applied, and then lacquered with a clear layer, which is actually, the clear layer has been done quite well. But interesting little bit, a giveaway, is the fact that the end has been done as well, and that really suggests that the original headstock has been cut to give the Gibson bookmark feel, and it's been painted black, or very nearly black, the same as the front, which is very unusual. You wouldn't get that if this was the original headstock shape. So it's not a Gibson, and there are a number of other clues about the positioning of the knobs, about the fact that the bridge has screw adjustments here to do with the size of the pickup surrounds. These are larger and the Gibson ones are smaller. And another one I hear a lot about, which is a dead giveaway, is that the Gibsons always have a three-piece headstock, a centerpiece and two outside flukes, and this clearly doesn't either. It's got Wilkinson aftermarket type.
No serial number.
Yeah, no serial number as well. That's true. If that was a Chibson from AliExpress, they're so naughty that they go ahead and stamp a fake embossed, recessed serial number, and that hasn't even got it. So it suggests it's all of these things point to it being one of the standard copies, like I say, Epiphone, vintage, possibly something like Westfield or something. So it's an average Les Paul copy, and it plays okay, but it has some fretting issues, choking on bends somewhere. Yeah, it's choking out. Yeah, it's not particularly low action, but we can sort that out. So it's come here for a setup and a look at check out the electrics, which something's crackling somewhere. So overall, a reasonable Les Paul copy, but not worth anything more than that, really.
Yeah,
to say.
someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah, it's you know, and with a good setup, it will play very nicely. I don't know about the tone of it yet. We'll have a listen to that and have a poke around under there to see what the various innards look like. It's always a good giveaway as well. But I'll come back to this one in a little bit. We're going to do some work on Mark's. Which one? Oh yeah, acoustic. Another sign of a sort of the budget end of the things is the jack plug thing as well. This is a very small and inexpensive version of jack plug plate, chromed, and there you go. But yeah. It's interesting. What's puzzling me is whether it's a vintage or an Epiphone. If it was an Epiphone, I think these bits here would be a bit wider. What hints at it being a vintage is the fact that vintage would come with these Wilkinson tunes stock, and if you look at it, there is no immediate evidence of other tuner holes, so they look like they could have come with those to begin with. And to me, that points at either being a vintage, or possibly even a Harley Benton or something like that. But whatever it was is covered up under this work that's been done on the headstock. So it's really interesting, and Dave says it was made by a local luthier. This is, I don't think, in fact I know for a fact this hasn't been made from a kit. This is not a home built you know, glued neck Les Paul copy. This is a Far East made Les Paul copy that somebody's just done a modification to the headstock and maybe changed out the pickups.
Yeah, nothing else really looks like it's been changed on it.
No, and so it's not a luthier built instrument, you know, carved from a block of wood. Everything would be different about it if it was. So I think Dave, it's going to be a disappointment in terms of its value. I'm afraid it's not worth a lot at all, really. But it's, as Mark says, it's you know, if it plays well, it's worth up to a couple of £100 if you really like the way it plays and sounds. But it's probably not what you wanted to hear. Anyway, we'll come back to it shortly. I'll stop this and we'll move on to Mark's thing. And hey, look, we're on the bench in stop motion as well. See you in a minute. Okay, welcome to Real Left Guitars Workshop. This is Sam, and I'm hot because I've just been clamping two pieces of American red oak together. I've just made, well, last day or so, not finished, but kind of mocking up the latest oak caster travel guitar. This one's in American white oak, and there's a few things left to be done. One of which is to replace the neck bolts with some really chunky hex bolts. The things that they give you, or that you buy for guitars, I find too wimpy. You need some big, really chunky things, so that if someone's going to take this on holiday, they're going to feel comfortable just cranking the neck off, cranking it back on, and it'll go back into exactly the right place. A nice routed neck pocket and chunky bolts which will not shear off like the first set I used had tiny little, I think it was 3mm hex key, and before you put any force on them at all to tighten up the neck, which you want to do, you don't want it creaking like this, before you put any force on it, it's starting to melt the hex fitting, which is crap. So the final ones are going to be, well, these are not quite them, but the final ones are going to come in at, they're going to be slightly different from this. They're going to have a sort of big head on them which will be countersunk, but it will be, this is a 6mm and 7.5 thingy threaded insert. It's all going to be 1mm up on all fronts on that, so they're really big bolts compared to what they sort of give you if you're buying it from guitar suppliers. Okay, so anyway, so that's what I've been doing, just clamping this lump of oak, which is planed onto its faces, and not really sanded or anything, just planed, and I'm gluing it together as such. And in a way, I'm hoping that will be enough to seal it and join it nicely. Anyway, what we're here to do today is this guitar belonging to Dave, and it's the interesting one that has Gibson on the headstock. And as I mentioned yesterday, this is not an AliExpress Chibson, so it's not some Chinese company ripping off the copyright of Gibson and being cynical about it. This is somebody's Les Paul copy that they've bought legitimately, probably something like a vintage, I would guess, or a Epiphone at a push, or some similar quality. And an owner in the past has made a fairly good job of painting up the headstock, replacing the logos or the decals with some nice quality Gibson Les Paul, and while the paintwork underneath isn't fantastic, the clear lacquer isn't bad on top. And the bit of the giveaway, I suppose, is the black painting on here, which has covered the original cherry and the binding. So the only reason you would paint over that is if you'd reshape that headstock from some other thing. Anyway, the point being is that what we've got is a full weight standard Les Paul copy in the 3-piece body. I haven't yet, and I'm going to now, I haven't yet taken off the stuff and seen what the electrics are like, but it's I don't expect anything surprising. Although there's a push-pull coil tap here, which switches on and off both humbuckers into coil, splits them into coil, single coil mode, and does both of them simultaneously. Is that the right way? Yeah, I suppose it does. It's it can't select one split and one humbucker. I guess it splits both coils simultaneously. Okay, so we've got a little bit of hello, Morris. Well, hello. Haven't seen you around for ages. You coming up to say hello? Come on, Morris. Come say hi. Hello, Mr. Jingle Bells. Say hi to everybody. Look, here he is, his lordship himself, Mr. M. Nosies. Thank you. Ah, the boy. Are you happy? He must have missed us for 3 weeks we were away. At least I like to think he did. He was a bit offish. I think that's not probably the right term. I think he just got used to not having us around, as cats do, and now he's going to knock the camera off. Come around here. And yeah, so since we've been back, he's been mighty friendly and happy to have us back. So that's how cats are. They don't mourn you when you've gone, but they like you when you're back. And he's very proud to be featured on many things, but yes, you're featured on the headstock of this guitar with your little top hat on. Yeah, you are. This is in your honour, my friend. Anyway. So he's just having a sniff around. He's very good. He doesn't tread on your guitars, by the way, in case anybody is worried. He doesn't, and he doesn't use them as scratching posts either. The only thing he does use as a scratching post is the frame of the door, because it's the shaggy, soft timber, which he really enjoys getting his furry claws, his little sharp claws into, and a bit of maybe the carpet. And he likes to rub his face on the camera. Very good. All right, you've had enough now. Shall we put you down? Come on then. It's a bit humid in here, so you need to go outside and do stuff. Anyway, you've probably seen me start to sweat because I've just been sawing. I've sawn these great big planks of oak into 6 pieces, which took 4 cuts, not 6. But anyway, so I'm warmed up. Anyway. Looking for the blade. What did I do with the blade? It was here a minute ago. Okay, let's get another one out. Isn't that weird? To lose something as straightforward as a blade. Well, I guess I'm probably in need of a new one in the mix anyway. And I always like to give them a bit of a clean off, followed by a bit of tape to hold them up. Funny enough, I've got proper Stanley blade things which I could be using instead, but this bizarre familiarity with using a tape covered craft knife blade like this, so it must be a bit funny. Anyway, so look, what we're here to do today is we're here to give Dave's Les Paul a really nice setup, and I've had a play of it yesterday and I like the way it sounds. It's got a Kent Armstrong humbucker in the bridge position, and it's got something that I as yet don't know what it is in the neck position. So I'm just going to put these safely off to one side so that we know where everything is. Interestingly, that's shielded, so is that, and it's nicely done. And obviously whoever's done the adjustments or tweaks to this guitar, get this to bend round, stay still, has set up a coil tap switch in there. So they've wired that up and it's all looking good, tidy enough, nothing unusual, surprising in there. I know Dave's a little concerned that the knobs are a little bit on the fully off side, so we'll take care of these two. I'll just put them off to one side for a minute. Take care of those two, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to take off this so that we can get underneath and give it a good clean, which is a small, minor thing we can do while we're at it. No harm in doing that. Give it a little bit of a freshen up under there. It takes a few seconds. There we go. Look, we've got some gunge which we can get rid of. Okay, so what do we observe otherwise about this guitar? Frets, I've already set the action approximately to where I want it, and the first thing you can hear is it can't really do anything. Certainly, can I get this thing to sit straight? Just do very well. That's maybe a straighter thing. Anyway, yeah, you can hear it. It barely plays notes. It absolutely will not bend. So at 1.5mm and 1.2, I think it is, it's pretty unplayable, which is not so great. So what I'm going to do is, obviously, I'm going to do Relove treatment and turn this into a nice playing Les Paul copy. And irrespective of its origins, there is no reason why we can't do that. I can't see anything about it at this point in time that suggests it's not doable. I haven't done any cranks on the truss rod to see whether that's working or not. There's no reason to think it wouldn't be if it's something like a vintage or an Epiphone below the surface. We've got two holes in the top here, which is unusual for it's not normal for a vintage, but having said that, this does look like it's been painted and lacquered by hand. Reasonably well done, whoever did it. In fact, it may not have been done on the front. That may, not quite sure where this has come from. As I said, one of the things that makes me not think it's a Chibson type thing, unless it's been requested specifically, it doesn't have the attempted direct rip-off embossed serial number that most Chibsons seem to come with. So there's nothing about it that says to me this is an AliExpress. I'm looking for signs of it. It has Wilkinson pickups on, which I won't take them off now, but if we take them off later, I suspect they will not have had anything else on there but Wilkinsons. So yeah, who knows exactly what that was to begin with. I don't know. The bit that does look unusual or different from everything else in terms of paint finish is the front of the headstock. Let's just pull you off here and see if you can see. You may sort of get a view in the light. It's got a sort of stripy kind of feel. It's got a single piece scarf joint headstock, so it's not a Gibson anyway, and it's got clear overlap of paint on the very top here. So even if this is as built, the top's been modified at the very top. So why would you modify the top? Why would somebody have built it as a Gibson and not had the correct Gibson bookmark, open book thing? Who knows? Anyway, it's not really the point. The point is, I suppose, let's see if I can get this thing sitting in a more something position. I can't really. Put a plectrum under there, maybe not. How are we doing? No, it's still. I glued it together earlier on, or a couple of days ago, and I think I probably just glued it into a single position. Yeah, it's probably alright. What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, well, irrespective of its origins, we've got what we've got, and it's actually a nice sounding, now not very nice playing because of the action, because of the uneven frets preventing us having a decent action. And other than that, everything else about it is standard Chinese factory, but not. It doesn't reek of it's not a homemade kit. It's not been finished at home. This is factory finish. You know, looks like Wilkinson Deluxe tuners as standard, and everything else about it makes me feel vintage or Epiphone. There's nothing homemade jumps out about this to me. Anyway, I guess that's about as much as we'll know. Kent Armstrong. Interestingly, the Kent Armstrong logo is upside down, so I don't know whether this is a neck pickup in the bridge position or whether it's meant to be that way around. Don't know what this is in front, but we'll find that out. You can hear that. Some of the frets are flattened, some of them are a bit rounder, but either way there's a lot of life left in them, and we'll take care of all of that. So just going on the usual things. I'll do the cleaning and further exploration once I've finished all the fret leveling, but just to do the normal routine first, I've got the action set where I want it. Let's have a look at what the relief is in the neck. Well, there is a little bit, and I'd say that's enough. I'm being very scientific about it. Now what I'm looking at is this plastic nut, which I think is horrible, and I think it might deserve an upgrade, a bone upgrade, and why wouldn't we? Let's just check the dimensions of this thing. Are they close or similar? They're similar. So before I go any further, I'm going to knock off, using Chris Barker's splendid nut knocker, or some such name. I'm going to knock off the nut and replace it, and then we'll go at the first fret action. Given that these other two parts are where we want them anyway, which is we've got the right playing action and we've got enough relief. Now when I say the right playing action, that's basically just from experience that 1.5mm at the last fret on a guitar like this is pretty nice low action. Does make all the difference, obviously, having a nice low action. The thing that prevents you from having that nice low action is almost exclusively the frets, which are in most cases almost universally, sorry about this noise, universally uneven. I'm just seeing there's this, I'm going to give it a bit of a harder whack. Yeah, the frets are on most guitars, in fact almost all, the vast majority of guitars the frets are by default uneven. Yeah, this is plastic. Now what it means is that the guitar is then set by default at a high enough action to kind of cancel out or mask, you could say, the effects of those uneven frets. And what are the effects? Well, they'll choke off the notes you're trying to play, or they will not play the notes at all, or they'll make the strings buzz, or in mild cases they'll show up by, you might be able to play the note, but as soon as you try to bend it, it'll choke and you won't be able to bend it. All of which will be useless in day-to-day rock and roll, and hopeless for expression. You really, it'd be a horrible experience. So this is interesting. This nut slot is exactly the right width for this chisel, which is often a very rare thing. Sorry, camera. So I'm just making sure that the slot is clean, and I will blow it with my famous canned air, or Eau de Tonewood, or whatever we called it, Tonewood for Men, lovely new fragrance by Yardley. Anyway, I'm just squaring off whatever I can, so little bits of glue, just sort of cutting them out so that there's nothing standing proud. You can do this with a chisel, or you can, as I'm doing, or another way of doing it is to get something nice and square and flat. Like often I use a fret rocker with sandpaper on it, which can be a really quick way of just taking down any bumps that are outstanding. I tend to use this mainly for this these days, since I don't use the fret rocker hardly ever now in my fret leveling process, because by using the curved truss rod file with the strings on, I don't need to use a fret rocker anymore. I'm lucky, aren't I? Anyway, so just a quick check of that lovely, nice, shiny new nut, and that sits right on there without any further adjustment, which is great. Perfect size. These aren't massively expensive. This is one that I order a long time in advance, with a long-term view. So order from China, and they're really good value when you do that, and they take a long time to arrive, but they are superbly affordable because of that. So good old China. So I'm just quick widgeting around, making sure this thing is sitting in the right place and that we've got the same sort of space everywhere we need it. Now I want to use the strings to anchor it down while it dries, and obviously I'm going to need the strings in there to set the individual string heights, because right now they'll be too high. So what I need to do is I need to just start working this from the middle, tightening from the middle outwards pretty evenly, otherwise it will ping off if I go with one of the outside ones. It tends to pull one way or another. So I'm just sort of putting the pressure on kind of evenly if I can. Right, and it's not really about tuning or anything now, this is just about downward pressure to lock the thing in place. Okay, so just as a quick guide, got quite a bit of height over the first fret now, not too much, but enough to, you know, we've got plenty of leeway with that we can use with the nut files. Now, just while we're at it, I'm going to put this back. While I'm at it, it's a good, waiting for the nut to dry, it's a good opportunity just to look around various other things that we've got here. You know, make sure there are no frets that are literally hanging out, check the ends of everything. Looks all pretty good. There's nothing sprung up presenting any obvious problems. We've already established that the notes are choking at this action that we've chosen, which obviously shouldn't be on a decent quality guitar. So obviously we're going to take care of that, but sometimes that could be because the frets have come unstuck and they're rising up at the edges, and in this case it doesn't appear to be a thing. Now this guitar has a couple of repairs on it, dings on the bodywork. They've been a bit kind of crudely repaired, and I say that with all due reverence and respect. I'm not a fantastic finisher with, you know, lacquer and stuff. I do basic repairs, probably do a little better than this. This has come out looking blue, so it's some sort of, I think it's got some sort of pearlescent nail varnish that's been used. Doesn't really match this, so this could better be worn down, filled with a little bit of cherry, and then possibly relacquered. But that's quite a lot of work to do, and it's not something that Dave kind of put on anywhere near the top of his list. The rest of this stuff on here, the hardware, is absolutely bog standard China issue. But we'll have a look on the underside of these. There's nothing on the underside of that I've already seen, but there is something on there, and we'll take a look at the pickups as well, or this pickup, once we've got the main bit of the work done, which is the fret leveling. So I'm just going to go for a full tune. Yeah, wrong thing, aren't I? Yes. Okay, so right now we've got the new nut and the choked off action, but it's nice and low down this end. We've got to do some work on the thing down this end. Now I somewhere did have note from Dave which talks about probably what okay, so it doesn't say what gauge strings, so I'll just double check what's on there. I suspect it's 9s. With my fresh battery in here we should be in luck. Nothing, so it's gone to millimetres. Thanks, go to inches. It doesn't want to do it. Oh dear, this isn't working very well. No, it keeps shutting off. I'm going to have to shim, believe it or not, shim this. This is ridiculous. Shimming the battery. It was working while it's just sitting there. Come on, man. I have to go and buy myself a new bleeding. It's invaluable, this. Can't live without it. But let's see if we can get this to stay on long enough to do its job. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay, stay. Inches. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, so I think it's, what's that saying? 8, 10.5, 14.5. 8, 10.5, 14.5. No, it's not that then, is it? What have we got? We've got now our packet of stuff. We may be without, okay, we've got 9s. Let's put hybrids on. Oops, sorry about that noise. We're out of strict 9s, but we've got a hybrid set here which starts with 9s in the bendy department. Unless I'm mistaken, we've got some acoustic strings. Okay, I'm going to get some more in. Stay there. Okay, so but that's good because I need to get the packet out. Sorry about this, faffing about. The reason I have to get the packet out is I want to just know what the gauge of each string is on here. So that will tell me. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll get all of my nut files, and I'm just going to pick a set to match. Okay, so we've got 9, which I want to go over obviously to begin with. So let's go. Try 13. We're going to go 11. No, let's go 9, 11, 13. Sorry, I'm talking to myself really. 9, 11, so 13 is the second one, 16 is the third one, so 9 is 11, 11 is 13, I know what I mean. 16 is going to have to be 17, at a bit of a squeeze. 16 is going to be 17, that's a squeeze, bit of a wiggle. 26 is going to be, not 26 that's for sure, 26 is going to be 32 maybe, let's have a look. 36 is going to be 42, if I can find it. There's 42, anybody? 42, 42, there's 42, I know there's a 42, yep, there's 32, 42 and 46 is going to have to be 48, that's our best bet of those. Okay, so you may be wondering, or you might not, but if you're wondering why I chose a set of files above the gauge of the strings we're actually using, is because from experience I've had enough of using the exact same size and then ending up having to work with sandpaper to try and widen the slots to stop the things binding, and binding strings in the slots is the most critical thing when it comes to stability of tuning. So I don't want to leave it to chance or to run the risk of having tight slots in the matron. What I want is to make sure they're loose to begin with, and from experience I know that they can tolerate quite a lot above the actual size of the string without any negative impact on the playing, but it will give you that extra width so you don't run any risk of pinching strings. And if in the unlikely event that we do get that, then I'll still come back with a bit of sandpaper. But this is the principle of getting these nut slots right. I'm going to work from the D outwards, and I'm literally going to set, using my feeler gauge, I'm going to pick a height of 0.3, which is what I like for a playing action. Now that happens to be, it's almost there on the D. A little bit, tiny little bit to go. So what I'll do is I'll work this little tiny bit, as much as anything, sorry to interrupt myself, I'll get a little bit of string as well, if I can remember where the little bit of string as well went, which I can't, so I'll cut a new bit of string. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it makes a convenient little string puller, and I've got loads of string on the floor now. Look, the point being is this helps me to pull the string and it stops me breaking my fingernails constantly. Right, so come back to where we were. We are a hair's breadth above the 30 or 0.3, and I'm going to lift the string using this, lift the guitar string out, drop it out of the way, and with my correct doofer I'm going to just very, very slightly cut down that one and then drop the string back in, avoiding the sharp bits that are cutting my fingers. Hey, it sounds like fun next door. Now I'm going to do a little bit more. The thing is about this is I'm going to be very precise, because I can see by the condition of these frets that we are going to take the frets down a little bit, and that means as the frets go down with the fret leveling process, that gap we are just achieving right now over the first fret is also going to increase. So what I'm calling 0.3 now, I want to be as snug to 0.3 as possible, because it's going to be 0.35 by the time we've fret leveled, to get rid of the flatness and unevenness on these frets. So the truth is, I guess as a judgment call, I could comfortably go down to 0.2 or 0.25, because I know this is going to open up a little bit. It also, by the way, is going to open up just fractionally when we put the guitar in this playing position too. So the 0.3 is a very conservative and fairly, frankly, safe call, really. And you can hear me talking myself into a 0.25 action, which it probably is. I'm going to go 0.25 since I know how much we're going to take off in future. So I'm going to be 0.25 or even 0.2, why not? Let's do 0.2, because we know we're going to go up to close to 0.3. Okay, we'll go with that. So that's that one done. We'll drop the next one back in, the A, tune it up. Now, the reason I'm doing this is twofold, several-fold. First of all, you probably know that a high action down here makes the guitar difficult, tiring, difficult to play. It's certainly hard to play bar chords and solo at the top end. But what is probably less well known is that when the guitar has a high action down this end, it's even more tiring. And it's subtle though, you hardly notice it, but it wears you out really quickly. Now, when we say has a high action down this end, it doesn't look high in the kind of same scale as the bridge action. So we know what high looks down here. It looks like a centimetre at the last fret. High at this end means anything above about 0.4, and anything between 0.4 raising up towards the 1 mark is way high. If you've got it at 0.5 and above on the first fret, you get serious intonation problems playing down here. That's the first thing, and it means notes pressed against the frets down here have to travel so far to the middle but they actually distort and go sharp, so that a D shape, for example, pressing these notes down, all of these notes go slightly sharp whilst these stay true, and the whole lot together sounds like a mess, and you never quite understand why you can't seem to get your guitar in tune. And that can be because the action here is as little as 1/4 of a millimetre too high, that kind of value. That's tiny value. So that's why I get so precise about the actions down here. And like I said, I know that on an electric guitar, a 0.2 action over the first fret, which opens up to 0.25, and then with a bit of fret leveling, possibly 0.3 by the time we finished, we're in playing position. But I can tell you that that makes a really good playing action from experience, and that coupled with a really nice low action at the final fret, courtesy of having leveled all the frets on the neck, those two major things together make a really, really fast playing, easy to play guitar that doesn't tire you out, and actually is very good to encourage newcomers, beginners to stick with the guitar and learn, because they've got more energy, oh god, I hate those things sticking up. It's got less tired, so more energy for learning. So it's a really, really worthwhile thing doing, whether you're a beginner or experienced player. Now we're just about on the mark there. I'm going to do a whisper of a bit more, the tiniest whisper. And again, you can see that an awful lot of this is about feel and touch and experience, but that's how it is. Okay, now we've got the last one, the low E, and again we're going to make sure that's the same. Currently clearing it by miles. I'll use the string to wake it off, drop it off to the side, and just go at it with the 48. I'm cutting the slot slightly backwards downhill towards the tuners, which ensures that the string launches off the front edge of the nut. It's really important. So these minuscule alterations, honestly tiny, they are a hair's breadth sometimes, and the precision of this really, really makes one hell of a difference. The amount of impact on the playing is just substantial for such a tiny adjustment, but you've got to get the adjustment right, otherwise it won't play well. And Mark, my mate who was up yesterday, and I did a couple of videos working on his guitars with him, he had that experience. Both of his guitars we improved the action on yesterday, and just totally transformed how they played. Right on the mark on that one, so I'm going to stop right there. Now I'm just going to retune those three. Okay, so put these three things away, and I'm going to work on the top three. I'm going to work outwards from the G outwards. Now while I'm at it, and I've got these things out, I might do the nut slots on my Oakcaster, since I haven't even touched it. I just chucked the neck on, so it needs the slots doing. I might as well get straight to that. Okay, so we'll get on and do this. A little bit on the G. Again, the string's good for getting it out of the way. Get the right file, get it the right way around, and away we go. So like I said, tiny adjustments, huge difference, and a real sensible thing to do. You know, you can take the time to do this. It's not major surgery. It feels like very little to have done to it, but for a massive payoff. And it does transform the way the guitar feels, and I often will say that. People say, look, give it your reloved low action setup, and I'll say, look, you do realise that this is going to feel completely different from the guitar you had before, and they go, yeah, that's fine. And as long as they know that, then I do it. But it is tiniest differences make the huge difference in experience. and just one of these, either one of these adjustments, it transforms how it feels, and the guitarist will know immediately it's different. Both of them together, it is practically a different guitar, and it's quite, sometimes you have to be prepared for that, and sometimes people think they are and possibly aren't. It's just so unusual, or it's so different. We don't know how used to our guitars we've become until they change, and then it's too late. So you can see I just keep going back, trying out the feeler gauge with my 0.2 setting under the string until it starts buzzing, and then I'm ready to stop. Now, for the amount of huge improvement this makes, I've always recommended people to have a go at this, and really all you need to have standing by to be confident is another nut. Almost there. You know, the worst you can do with this is you can cut the slots here too far, and in that case, if that is what happens, then there are a number of ways you can fix it if you wanted to, or you could just knock it off and come back with a new nut. And if you paid a couple of quid for these on the long range from China, then it's not a lot of money to do some quality learning. So I recommend get a couple of them in store and teach yourself how to do this and see the massive difference it makes. And then, as I say, you probably won't make a mistake anyway, and it'll be great first time out. But even if you did, it might cost you 2 quid, maybe at the worst 4 quid if you ruin 2 nuts one after another, which is going to be highly unlikely. Like I say, the chances are you'll get it right the first time. But for 2 quid and a bit of nervousness, the improvement will be so much more than the potential money you might spend in having a standby, a fallback ready. That's my promise. That's my promise to you. Okay, so just boringly keep on dropping it off, taking a little bit further down, not too much in any one go. Go with patience more than anything. Keep the tension to normal playing tension. The reason they have to do that is to make sure that the string is sitting right down in the slot as far as it will go. If it isn't sitting down in the slot because you haven't put it under the correct tension, the chances are you'll get fooled and you'll think you have to keep on cutting, and you'll keep going and you'll go too far. And then when you put the thing under full tension, it will suddenly go ping right down to the bottom of the slot, and you'll be on the fret, and you'll have to repair or restart with a new whole £2 worth of new bone nut from China, or whatever it cost you. So it's really, you really can't go that far wrong if you prepare. Like I say, what price learning how to do something? It's peanuts for that learning experience, and that's without even factoring in how radical and amazing an improvement you're going to make on your own kitchen table or whatever. Okay, I'm stopping there. Right, so we've put a brand new bone nut on this thing, which is replaced the horrible plastic thing that was on there before. We've now cut the slots down to a beautiful low action down this end, but of course we know it won't play because we've still got the uneven frets. Now what we're going to do now is I'm just going to slack the strings off again because I want to get underneath them and ready to, prior to doing fret leveling, I'm going to paint the frets with marker pen, so getting the strings off is a helpful thing. Get ready for that. And also in this case I'm also going to pull them off to one side because while I'm here I'm going to have a sneaky look at the hardware and the pickups, or pickups as hardware or whatever. So I don't really care too much about the strings, I just don't want them to fall off. they're going to go in the bin shortly, so I don't have to be too precious, other than I want them to do back up. I don't want them to just snap and stay snapped. Not yet anyway. Give us a little bit more time with them, please. I just need them off far enough to gain access under the pickups without too much hassle. So a bit more slacking off here, please. Okay, and once we've done that, we can have a little gander at what, see if we can see any brand names on the neck pickup, and see what we've got underneath the bridge. The Tunematic bridge on this thing is an absolutely bog standard Chinese or Korean, whatever, probably Chinese though, Chinese made thing. It's a Sung-il, which I think is a Korean made, so there you go. We've got a bit of height set on the posts here, which I don't need to worry about because I can always reset them at my leisure. But part of what we're here to do right this second is have a gander underneath this front pickup cover and see what we've got. Now, if this is a Korean made Les Paul copy, I wouldn't be surprised if this front thing was a G&B, I think it's called G&B, a G&B brand pickup. If it's an Epiphone, it might convince me that this guitar was an Epiphone before it became a quote-unquote Gibson. Otherwise, I'm still a bit stumped, but it's all good fun detective work. Okay, so that's this one. That's interesting. So this one says Sky Pickups Courier. Okay, designed by Kent Armstrong. It's got you don't know what to believe, 5.74K, or is that 8.74K? I think somebody's telling us 8. Judging by how it played, the neck pickup is Sky brand, which I haven't heard of, and it's a neck by designed by Kent Armstrong, KA, as opposed to being actually KA. It's a bit like Duncan designed, and this is a HPAG1, which I can do a bit of research on. Now the bridge pickup we know is a Kent Armstrong, and it says on here, well, let's call it 8.79K ohms resistance. Okay, sure, that's nice. Just while I'm at it, if I can find my cloth, while I'm at it, it's always a nice thing to, when you've got a cover up, just get under there with a bit of, what's this stuff? Yeah, you know, cleaner thing, solvent, in this case petroleum ether, but get under there around the edges where there's sort of little grimy rim that builds up, give it a little clean. No harm at all in doing so. Places where you can't normally reach, just helps to make the thing look a little bit fresher. Okay, so this is cool. It sort of looks like a Duncan designed or Armstrong designed. Let's see what the other one says, if it has a similar name on it, or whether Sky is the brand for both of them. But yeah, even though that bridge one looks upside down with the writing, it sounds nice and crunchy in that position, nice trebles and nice clarity. So to be honest, I don't know if it's in the right place or not, but it sounds pretty good. It was nice playing it yesterday. Okay, so let's take this one off while we're in the market. Let's talk on this for a second. So, all good fun. So as I'm doing this, I'm lining up to mark up frets ready for fret leveling, and you've probably gathered by now that I do my fret leveling with the strings on and the guitar in fully set up playing mode. So the important thing to point out is a different thing altogether. So this is not any other brand, it's designed by Kent Armstrong. So it's kind of a Kent Armstrong brand, and it's M215K. M215K. Now I could look on the phone in a minute, but I probably would end up making bleeping noises. But I'll probably stop, go and make a cup of tea and do a little quick bit of research into those two. Yeah, so the point about the approach I take with fret leveling is normally your action on your guitar is usually set or dictated to you by the quality or the unevenness inherent in the underlying frets. You see from the way I'm going about it. Okay, I'm going to go back the way it was, but it kind of makes me feel like it wants to go the other way around. But yeah, what I do is, instead of being dictated to by the underlying fret condition, I dictate the action that we want, and then I make the frets comply with that. So it's a much more in control way of doing it. And the reasons why I do it with the guitar fully strung and in the playing configuration is because there's a number of benefits from doing it that way. One of them is very practical. It allows me only to take off as much material from the frets as I absolutely need to make the action I've chosen play really well. The other one is that it's more accurate, slightly more accurate than doing it with the traditional methods. Another one advantage is that the strings are on, and I can stop. I can test it. Have I leveled the frets enough? I can test that, answer that question by playing the notes, and you can hear the notes freeing up as we go along, so you can actually tell the difference it's making, which is great. So those are the reasons I do it. And the other one is that the reason it's more accurate is because when you do it with the neck under load, you're leveling with the compression effects that the string load puts on the neck. You're doing it with the compression effects incorporated into the equation, if you like. And that means that when you level the frets, clean them up, reprofile them and polish them, and then reload with new strings, it goes back into the exact same relative levelness that you had before. If you level them with the neck off but not under load, you do get 100% level to begin with. Then you put the strings back on, you load the neck and put it into playing position, and that reintroduces a compression effect into the neck which you didn't have when you leveled it, and the result of that is that it sets off or throws off your accuracy of your level by a fraction. Now it's not a huge amount, but it's enough to make it less accurate than doing it the way I do it. So that's but in case you were wondering, and please, in case anyone writes yet again asks me, well, worse, tells me I'm doing it wrong, and then tells me how stupid I must be to think it's even possible to level your frets this way, and why don't I do it the right way, which is the passive blah 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 blah. Please accept, or have the respect or the decency to respect, that I'm doing it this way for very well considered reasons, and reasons born from a lot of practical experience doing it now. So it isn't just I read it in a book once and I now think that's the way to do it. It is because I've done it through practice and experiment. So honestly, I don't need anyone to tell me that I'm doing it wrong and ask me why I do it this way. I've told you why. It's proven in action to my satisfaction and to the satisfaction of the people I do this for. So that's enough. That's evidence enough for me. I don't need to be told by somebody who hasn't done 250 setups that it doesn't work. Okay, just a little respectful request there. So think, please, before you tell me it's the wrong way, because it isn't. Anyway, it's just the internet for you. It gets like that, doesn't it? Right. So you can see that I've taken the opportunity while I was there just to clean up the what did I clean up? I cleaned up the tunematic bridge, and look how nicely I treated it for a piece of kit that I absolutely detest. I think it's the worst piece of design ever made, but I still treat it with respect. We may come across why I think it's the crappiest design ever shortly, but let's hope we don't. Anyway, so yeah, I cleaned that up while I was there, cleaned the stop bar up, cleaned in between the pickups, cleaned around the edge where it's hidden so that we've got a bit of a fresher thing, and I'll hold off the overall cleaning of the guitar until I've done the fret leveling, and then I'm going to, I'll be in a position then to drop off these sacrificial frets, clean everything up including the fingerboard, and once we've done that, you know, that's at that point it's the time to clean up the bodywork and give it a really good once over polish or clean up and buff, and then we're ready to restring and get it intonated. And it's around about intonation time that I start to hate the tunematic bridge for all kinds of reasons. So having just put these what I call sacrificial strings back on, it just means I don't mind breaking them. I do, because it's a pain in the ass. Sacrificial strings are just there to load the neck, so I need to find another one now, which is just a pain in the bum. What gauge was that we were saying to ourselves? What gauge is it going to be? See, it didn't quite last long enough. That's the annoying bit. It's 11. I'm going to... Hello, Morris. You've got 11 knocking about here, Morris. 9, 10. Bugger. I bet you I haven't got an 11 kicking about spare. Let's have a look. I don't really want to chuck loads of money at a new string for this. Is that an 11? No, it's a 12. That'll do. Or is it a 12 even? Or is it tending to be one? There's loads of spares in here that I don't care much about. These are acoustic strings. That's a 12. I could do that if it came to it. Unless I've got an 11 kicking about in here. There's always loads of fat strings left over, you know that much. 17s until you count your ears. 32s, yeah, some 16s, tons of them. Crap. Okay. A 12 is going to do. 12 is going to do for now. A 12 is just going to load the neck for me. Close enough. And it's going to go in the bin straight afterwards as well. But there we are. Hey, the sun's come out, Morris. Okay. This is a Harley Benton special string, but that's what they're good for. I think I'm kicking around for emergencies like this. Oh yeah, sorry, but just one thing. These happen to be the Easy Lock strings, Wilkinson's Easy Lock strings, which are designed so that you can. They have two holes through 90 degrees to each other, and the idea is that you run the string through one. Oh Jesus, I'm sick of sticking this in me. You run the string through one way and back through the other one at 90 degrees and give it a strong tug, and that should lock it. Now I have to say, I started out liking that system. I've grown to like it less, and I tend not to use it because I have a sort of self-locking method that I use anyway. It doesn't really matter. All it's there for is supposedly makes it, I guess, a string on the floor. Supposedly makes it a bit easier. I stick to my self-locking method. Just while I'm here, I'm going to cut these stupid little ends off because they really are getting on my wick, hurting me regularly. So these are going to go in the bin anyway, but meantime all of those bits can go away. Alright, so let's get these tuned up again. Right, we have, I'm just going to get, this is what happened last time, I'll give it a little tug just so it stays in tune as much as possible. Right, there we are. That'll do for tuning. So we now have, let's just recap, we have the action set where we want it. Let me just double check that because it may have moved a little bit. Get our measurementy thing. Should be, okay, we're on 1.2 there, it's quite low, and 0.8 there, so it is a bit low. Let's we don't want to create too much of an impossible job for ourselves. So if I could find the correct thingy, I'll just wind this up a tiny fraction and wind this up. Now they just got moved as while I was doing the cleaning down there. So just make sure we're back at 1.2, that's about right, and 1.1, that's not bad. I'll just go up a tiny fraction from 1.2 because we were aiming at 1.5, let's not over stress it. Okay, so just tune it again, make sure. Right. Okay, so we have the action we want, we have the relief in the neck we want, we've got a nice new nut with the first fret action we want. Now is the time to force the frets to do our bidding. And to do that, for the reasons I've explained, or tried to explain hopefully, if you don't understand it, try it, then you'll understand it. It kind of makes sense once you do it physically. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to now use these little things here, those little feet, and a truss rod to map the curve of this neck, because the neck has a bit of curvature in it, and to level the frets properly in the plain configuration we need to make our fret leveling file, which is this truss rod with sandpaper on it. We need to make this mimic the curve in the neck, and to do that I'm going to use, I need an Allen key. Oh, please, I need an Allen key, the one that fits there, which isn't that one, or that one, and it's vanished. Here it is. Right, yeah, so I'm going to use these little feet, this Allen key, and this truss rod to match the curve on this neck. So what do? I place the foot down, well, I put the little feet between the E and the B string to begin with, and I place down, first of all I'm going to just check the distance between the first two and map it across and move so that we've got equidistant dots, feet. Then I put the left hand side one down. Oh, actually, sorry, what I do is I use my little tabs of paper to mark the position of the three little brass feet, because I want to go back to the same place each time I move across the fretboard radius. I want to be able to recalibrate each time. So I put the left side down on the brass foot and then see what happens. Now I can feel that the right hand side of the truss rod hits this domed nut, and I can wiggle and see that it's clearing the middle one totally. It's not even touching the middle one. Now that means that the neck is more curved than the rod, because there's a hollow here and the middle of this rod isn't touching the this middle brass one. And so what I do is I take this and I twist the truss rod adjuster to put a little bit more curve in the truss rod, and I drop it on it again and I wiggle it around, and it still isn't touching. So it isn't the right bloody Allen key. Is it this one? I've lost my marbles. It's not that one, but it's this one, surely. Yeah. Right, so I make a tiny adjustment with the correct Allen key, and then I put it back down on the left side across the middle and feel where it lands again. Now it's still not touching the middle one, so I bend the truss rod a tiny bit more, and it's tiny amounts, absolutely tiny amounts. Now, you probably see it's now moving the middle one. Now I check, what I want is it to be touching all three equally, which means they all move at the same time. Well, let's say that these two do anyway, because I'm holding this first one down. These two move equal amounts, and what I don't want is the feeling that this one clunks first and then a minuscule second later afterwards this clunks. If that happens, I'm too curved on the truss rod and I need to back off. It's a very subtle thing, but you do get it after a while now. And it's so precise, by the miracle of sort of physics and basic science, I can tell you that now has mapped that curve perfectly. And if I could show you this down the, let's see if we can do this, down the length of the truss rod. Oh my god, it's all over the place. If you could see down the length of that truss rod, you would see that it's curved. Whether you can do it or not, I don't know. So if I can straighten this out somehow. This arrangement, I'm going to have to rejig it because it's really annoying me. It's dangling. Can't make it. That's a straight line, but anyway. Right. So I now have the curvature on my leveling beam that I need, and what I do, again, I'll use my little friendly string. I will hoik out the E string, drop it off to one side, and with my little plastic thing, it could be anything that's square or whatever you want, a thing, and I'm going to use that thing to just push apart the B and the E. So what it does is it clears me a track all the way down. Oh, I do hate this. I'm going to rejig it later on, can't stand it anymore. So I've cleared what I call the E track, which is the line that the E string sits in and everything either side. And here's the miracle. I start to, using gravity as my aid, I just run this 400 grit paper up and down on the fretboard gently to begin with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and look at what's going on, and that's a really important part of the process, is to pause and see what's happening. So immediately if I pause, I can see that it's cutting these three, not, yes, no, well, bit, yes, and yes. So that's a diagnostic kind of flag for me. It says I'm cutting the ends but not the middle. I'm going to recalibrate because it suggests to me it's possible I may have got the curve wrong, in which case it's a minor, I've hardly taken anything out. It's 400 grit, it's very fine. So I have the leeway or the space to stop and recheck my calibration, and it's a really good thing to do. I do it regularly. I don't worry about getting it wrong. I'll stop if I see those marks not cutting where I think they should cut. I stop. Now I'm looking and I can see now it's not curved enough. Either it's I got it wrong the first time, or it may have uncurled a bit or something. But I'm going to go back and I'm still missing it. So I don't know what I did. It doesn't really matter. What it means is, what matters is that my observation was correct. I was too flat and it wasn't going into the gap, and the same is applying here. It's just about moving it now, but not enough still. So I was quite a bit off that first time, and as I say, it doesn't matter that I was off. That's exactly what the diagnostic process is about. You do a little bit and you stop and you go, something's wrong. Okay, now I'm still not touching that middle one, so I'm going to make these mild tiny adjustments. And if I go past the point, what will happen is I will start moving the middle one. It'll move very easily like that now, but it's not clunking down in two places. I would say that's the right shape. Now if I've recalibrated correctly, what's going to happen is you will see this suddenly start cutting in here, which is going to tell us that it's now correctly following the curve off the guitar neck. So the first thing I'd expect is to see some action in the middle now, where we had none before. Let's have a quick look. Now it could be that there's no, it could just be that there's, that these are massively higher than everything else, and therefore it's going to cut the ends first anyway. But it's a good diagnostic. It should be seeing some cutting towards the middle if we've mapped the curve of the thing correctly. So having a quick look now, we've got cutting here, we've got cutting there, a little bit there, and some there. And particularly this is the killer one here. In fact, I really want to show this. Remember how we were getting... Are you playing? Yeah. Remember how we were getting choked notes? So cutting here, here, and here, which is okay. None there, a little bit there, a little bit there, none there, none there, none there, loads there. That's the one that was choking everything off. Okay. So the nice thing about this process is, as I think I mentioned before, is that it's not about just going at it non-stop forever. We do it until we make it play with the action that we've chosen. So I can, at this point, no matter what it's showing there, we have to accept that that might have been enough to free up these notes that we couldn't play before. So the thing you do is you just stop there, put the string back on, put the guitar up on its side, on its edge, and try it. That's pretty good. It's almost there. Tiny little bit of zizz here and there. I'm going to do a fraction more and then I'm going to stop, even though, as you can see, the visual sign is telling us it's not cutting all the frets yet. Remember, the point is we don't have to cut all the frets. We just need to cut as much as is required to free up and play nicely the action that we've already chosen. Now, I'm not going to bend those notes yet, because when I'm bending on the E string, if I'm bending the E string and it's choking somewhere in the middle of the radius. So we won't really see an improvement in that until we've done the B track and the G track. So cutting here, here, a little bit here. So we're now down to starting to cut all of them, which is great. This one's cut loads because it really is high. That 15th fret is a real problem, which we could tell just by the fact that it choked off those notes so completely. So we're going to use the same calibration for this next track, the B track, mainly because we can't really move it anywhere else to calibrate it, and we're going to use the spacer again just to get that out of the way. So same calibration for this B track, and again off we go. We cover the whole of the space between the strings, because obviously the string, it lives in a track but it doesn't stay in that track. We bend it, so everything has to be levelled in a nice kind of linear fashion, and again just a few sort of goes up and down using mostly gravity, and then we can stop and look. And again, we are taking tons off this 15th fret. It's worth even taking a picture of, because you know that's a really, it tells us what we already knew. So sort of going backwards, you know, we knew by playing that that was the problem, but here we're seeing it kind of confirmed by the fret leveling process, which is great. It just kind of confirms that we know what's going on. That's a good thing. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit up and down on here, knowing that that 15th fret is really high, and we do still need to take that down a bit. But once we've done a few backwards and forwards, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that playing test and see that everything plays. That's really flattening that 15th fret. It's a really bad way, whatever happened to it. Okay, so we're just testing the notes. A little bit of, not bad. Let's bend the, see, now we couldn't do that before. If you rewound the video, backed up, you can see that what we've done so far has now freed up that note. Still choking out over here. Oh, I don't know if you can see, but as soon as this B string is bent up to that 15th fret there, where we haven't yet levelled it, you can hear it's choked out, but it's playing down there. Okay, so we are clearing the way, which is great. I'm going to do a fraction more on that B track, and then move on and recalibrate for the G. And the recalibrate means that we're just going to take into account if the radius, if the relief changes as we go across the radius this way, then this method allows us to recalibrate as we move across the radius, and that's what we'll do next. Really nice way of doing things, and it really, I mean, that's so flat, that 50, it's a major, you can see it's a major issue on this guitar. Okay, so now recalibrating, I drop the my little feet back into their positions. They're to the far side in my case of the G, but we're calibrating for the G slot, so we're as close to it as we can be. And now I'm going to just drop this down, wiggle it backwards and forwards. It's moving the middle one, and it's actually a little over curved now, so I'm going to just back off with the curve on the truss rod, and I want it to move the middle one, but I don't want that double clunk, and that's good. So we'll go with that. Again, off with those, lift the G out of the way with a friendly piece of string. I just learned that that saves my, really does save my fingernails. Okay, and then we go into the G slot, or the G track, with the truss rod again, and you know, up and down we go, sort of concentrating on the G track where the G string sits, but we need to cover that whole open space between the two strings. And then once we've done a bit, we'll stop and do the playing test. And I'm just keeping an eye on the 11th fret is really flattened as well, as is the 15th, so there's a couple of really problematic frets in this whole neck arrangement, which means they're high for one reason or another. And then also in this whole mix we've got some very low, well, relatively low frets too, which is the, like the 8th and the 9th. And the interesting thing about level frets, of course, is that a low fret creates everything else as high. Still choking out. I'm going to do more on that G slot, and I think I'm going to recalibrate just to be on the safe side. Yeah, so that's the funny thing, is that we're only talking about relative levelness here. So there, you know, if you forget for a minute there's any such thing as, there's no such thing as empirically high or empirically low. They're just high or low relative to each other. So that if one of these frets has been hammered in, either hammered in too far and it's very low in relation to all the ones around it, or it was a, let's say, a different gauge of fret wire, so it's actually quite a bit yeah, not as tall a fret as the others, then that low fret basically makes the other frets behave high. And so if you have a low fret, you kind of have to work down all the surrounding frets until you bottom out. So the low fret becomes your kind of literally your lowest common denominator in the process, which can be quite expensive as far as the fret life, or the life of the frets on your guitar is concerned, because if you've got a couple of low frets, the rest may be nice and tall relative to each other, but because they're because you've got these two low ones, you have to take all the normal ones down to the level of the low ones, because they kind of dictate what's going on. They are the lowest common denominator. But, yeah, literally. So it's quite annoying, and sometimes you have to decide whether or not they're so low, if something has happened that they really are low, like they're really hammered in way heavier than everything else, you really are asking yourself, do you want to reduce the life of your fretboard by half just to compensate for this one spot or specific problem with one or two frets? And if your answer is no, then you might consider taking the low frets out altogether, and replacing them with something closer to what they should be. these are still choking out, but we're still not on the, it's choking out as it comes to the A track, which we haven't got to yet, so that's not too bad. I'm going to go to the A track now, so that's recalibrate. I'm putting my little feet to the north side of the A track to do the calibration. Technically it's not quite on the A track, but it's near to it. So I'm just having a feel of this now. That's slightly over curved because I can feel that double click, very gentle double click, so backing it off takes a tiny bit of the curve out of it. That's pretty much spot on. You'll be amazed how good you can get at this. You just have to kind of have a bit of faith in it and get stuck in, and you'll be doing it in no time. The proof is in the fact that you've heard that we've cleared up those notes and the bends are now starting to play, and that's just as a result of what we've done with this tool. But the important bit is it confirms the thinking behind it. That's the really important bit. It means the logic is right. So there's any people looking at it thinking, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it confirms the logic is correct. It's freeing up notes that wouldn't work previously with the action that we've chosen, and now they do. When the experiment returns the right results, you know that the underpinning thinking is correct, and that's the important thing. So we really do have a major problem with that 15th fret there. It's quite, oh, look at that. It's quite understandably now flat, relatively flat compared to the others. I'm going to move on. What did we just do there? We didn't do the A, we just did the G. Now I'm going to do the A. Sorry, we did the D, now I'm going to do the A. And then I'm going to have a play and see how things are. Remember, this is still below the 1.5, which is probably a little bit over adventurous for this guitar. Some guitars, the neck is good enough condition to aim for a millimetre action at the last fret, and then you can do some very careful fret levelling, and you'll get there. It'll play beautifully. But these Les Paul copies, in my experience, don't really tolerate that in the same way. The millimetre is not usually possible. I'll tell you though what is. It usually works on the SGs, so that if it was a vintage brand SG, they're quite good. Those necks seem to be good for a millimetre, around about a millimetre action at the last fret. And I think it's something to do with the flexibility of the neck. These are less responsive to adjustments because of the sort of thickness of the neck as it goes into the body part of the guitar. But I've always found that the SGs seem to be quite a bit more, you can get quite a lot lower with them, which is great. So here we are. Still lots of flattening going on there on that 15th fret. It's going to take work to reshape it, but that's what we have to do. Going to check this height again. Let's see what we've got. No, it's just about 1.5. I'm not going to adjust it. I'm going to take it as red and I'm going to work to get it. Now I'm going to go back one step. I'm not totally happy with. No, what was I not happy with? Not happy with the A. I'm going to recalibrate the A and do some more on there. So it is a persistent thing. You've got to be prepared to keep on going at it, and you have to have the confidence not to give up on it, because if you do, you're not going to get there. and like I say, you've got to also know when you need to either recalibrate because you clearly you've got the shape of the thing wrong and it's not getting you where you need to be, or where you have to stop because you really can't go any further with the amount of metal you've taken off somewhere. You're getting to a marginal level in the whole thing, so you've got to be confident to make that call to keep going or to stop. So, you know, like here I'm on the A slot, and I didn't quite like that last little bit of zizzing when we tried to play notes, so I've gone a little bit more, you know, a few microns of material. But let's have a listen. Better. Okay, let's calibrate for the low E, and then we'll have a general evaluation. So this is the fret leveling process, nearly done, and of course, particularly on this guitar, as I expected, we've got some seriously flattened frets, which is no surprise given the amount of leveling we've had to do. It's not often that a guitar will have, I'll get it with evident choking notes, and this one came like that. So, and as soon as we lowered it even further, it obviously choked off completely. So from the start, this has been one that was always going to have a lot of material taken off some of the frets, and that's going to mean the next part is harder work, because we've got to take these flattened frets and round them off to recreate a sort of arch shape, because that's what they need, a nice even arch form, to make sure that the intonation point's right in the centre of the fret and that they're smooth and will respond well to fretting and bending notes. So, okay, so I'm just don't have to move much to get this done, and the nice thing is that the 400 grit sandpaper does it very slowly but very effectively, so you have plenty of time to stop and reconsider. And, you know, it's hard to go too far too quickly with it. If it was 200 grit or less, you would be going too quick. A little bit more rattling starting at that end than I'd like, so I'm just going to do a little bit more. And have a look, you know, and sort of reconsider is to say, okay, how's it playing? Do I want to carry on a bit more to go, you know, get iron out these last little buzzes? Is there enough material to do it? Am I confident that we'll get there? And if not, if we can't get there or there isn't enough material, then one of the options then obviously is to just fractionally raise the action. Now that will be usually so little that you won't notice it in terms of how the guitar plays, but it's enough to just alleviate the last hint of buzz. Sometimes that has to be a compromise. Right, let's tune this up and have a feel overall. I'm going to stop there, partly because we're almost there, I think, but the process now of crowning the frets and polishing them a little bit is going to also reduce the height fractionally, and that's just going to give us that last little extra bit of room, which will free up the last little bit of zizzing. So how the hell did I manage that? I'm what? I've lost my mind. It's not even feasible. That's gone right through the middle. No, 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 this is mad. Something's gone, I've lost my marbles. Anyway, I don't know how I did that. Get that. This one isn't possible. How can you even wind it on if it goes... No, no, I'm loopy. I've gone mad. Somebody... That's not what that is, just total... I don't understand how that even happened. It's kind of actually not possible, but it has happened, so who am I to say? Right, so you can see at this point I'm going to chuck away these sacrificial strings. They've done their service in helping me tension the guitar and level the frets. So I can get a shot of these now. They'll go in the bin. I've got the action I want down at the bridge. I've got the action I want at the first fret. I've got a new nut on. I've got the frets all levelled with the guitar in playing configuration under load. So all I have to do now is to reprofile the frets to change their shape from wherever they're flattened to nice and dome shaped again, and then once I've done that I just need to polish them out so that they're a nice smooth playing shine on them, so that they're good for playing and bending, and then we'll restring. Once we've restrung, we've got to sort out the what is this? Something's happened here today and I'm definitely losing my marbles because I don't know why these are all so tangled up at this end. Right, yeah, so once we've restrung it, then we're going to pull out all the stretch from the new strings and intonate the guitar, and that will be done. So now is a good opportunity to give it a clean, and also with the strings off now I can have a quick look under the machine heads and see if any other tuners have been on this prior to these Wilkinson things. So take that off for a second. Again, it doesn't matter, I can always go back and change the action to anything I want, because we know that whatever I set it to, it will play in the way I wanted, that we've already got the configuration set up. So I'm just going to whiz off the one of these tuners and peek underneath. I suspect it'll be the only holes under there. Yep, these are the original tuners, so that kind of suggests either it's a vintage guitar somewhere in its past, or it is also possible it's been built by someone, and that's part of what Dave felt that its history was. Although I don't think it has a sort of home or luthier build look to it. It looks like factory finish to me. And if you'd built it from home, you would have cut the correct headstock you're aiming for, your Gibson shaped headstock, and you would have sprayed it all in the same professional looking way the edges are done down here, which isn't the case. So yeah, it's not, to me it's not a luthier built thing. Anyway, so while I'm at it, everything here is good, it all works, there's no electrical issues, which is nice. I don't have to worry too much about that. I'm just going to give this a nice sort of clean off. This sort of penultimate rub down. There are some ding marks here that have been painted over, and that doesn't really clean up, unfortunately. They're just as they are. But we can, get some of the grime off this. Also, the neck has been sanded down lightly with something like 2000 or 1500 grit, just to it's giving it a sort of satiny feel rather than a gloss sticky feel. Some people don't like that. Right, while I'm at it then, we'll do the front here. run over the front again, but get a good clean up where we can. Run over the pickups. I'm just going to hold the action in place. There's no point shifting it if I don't have to. Might as well leave it where we want it. And then a bit of a clean on the headstock, and then I'll go over the whole of the neck with some naphtha as well. Now this will take off the original marker pen, but we're going to put some more on in a minute. I was going to take a break, but I seem to be carrying on. I will in a second. Let's get this bit done. So, cleaning up the fingerboard with a good strong rub with naphtha is really good to use. This is a substitute. It's petroleum ether. It's very much like naphtha, but it evaporates a bit quicker. But you can see it gets off. I mean, that's a mixture of marker pen as well, but it does pull off grease very well, and you can get a nice clean. If you get really grounded stuff, you can get a toothbrush, soak it in, wet it with this petroleum ether and give that a good scrub into the corners. But this isn't that dirty. Right, now before I restring it, I will also give it this an oil, because you can see it makes it quite dry, but we're not at that stage yet. Stage we're at is two things. I'm going to mark it up with marker pen again, because we're going to use marker pen as a way of telling us how well we're doing in reshaping these frets one by one. And then the bit I will do off camera is I'm going to mask off all of the frets prior to doing the next bit, because once I've got it all masked off to protect the fingerboard and to protect the edges of the guitar, we can then do the next two parts of the process, which is the reprofiling the fret and then polishing all the frets out. We can do those two things kind of one after another without stopping. Okay, so there is this boring bit of masking off that requires that I just piddle away like this for a while, and obviously I'm going to need to cut a whole set of different gauge strips. So what I will do is I'll come back to you when I've done that, and we'll take it from there, using low tack masking tape, by the way. Okay, so just to quickly show you what we're going to do, we're going to take the fret profiling or fret crowning tool, and we're going to use the medium size side, and the idea is we just run it up and down and wear the flat edges off the fret until we end up with a shiny fret with just the thinnest black line of marker pen down the middle, which tells us then we've rounded it off, but we haven't taken any more height off it. And if we can do that to all the frets and round them off, or turn them back into nice rounded frets, but leave that little thin strip of marker pen telling us the top has been untouched, then what we've done is we've effectively reshaped everything but retained the relative levelness of all the frets. So this is going to take a while on this guitar, because some of the frets now had to be flattened quite considerably to level this out. So I would say it's a pretty uneven set of frets on here. So I'm going to get off and do this off camera, and once I've done it I'm going to then do the polishing process, which it takes about half an hour, and I'm going to run through a series of sandpapers, wet and dry papers, from 600 to 800, 1000, 1200, and then I'm going to switch to a micro mesh set and go from 1500 on the micro mesh through to 12,000, and then by that time it will be fully polished and we'll be ready to restring. Okay, so I'll come back to you at the restringing process and we'll go from there. It'll be near the end. Okay, so just finished the polishing, cleaned up the guitar, oiled the fingerboard, and now the time has come to replace the strings. Oh, I've also expanded the retweaked the pots down here, so the knobs should stay on, and they don't stay like that forever. It's just something that wears eventually, and nothing you can do about it other than you can sort of pack out the little pot the big split so it doesn't bend in anymore, but that should be alright for now. Okay, so we come to the fun part of restringing, and like I said, although these are the easy lock type, I'm not going to use them like that. I hope you don't mind. I have a sort of stringing routine that I prefer to do, and I'm going to go from the top one of each of these in my stringing. It's pretty much of a muchness. So I go through the top, pull back a fret and a finger, and I wind on, holding on to the taut bit. I go over the loose bit, and then as it comes back round, I'm going to sneeze, and I go under the loose bit, the sticky up bit, and come round, and then it's a sort of lock, and it just 2 loops and it's done. I go straight into chopping off the excess. While I was having a cup of tea, after just finishing up the polishing, I had a quick look at the pickups on this online, and they're made under license by a company called Sky in Korea, and the Kent Armstrong doesn't make Kent Armstrong the person is a kind of, by all accounts, is a bespoke pickup maker who will make pickups to order for individuals, but they're very expensive. These are made under license in Korea by Sky, and they have mixed reviews. Some people think they're okay, some people hate them, so it's I don't really have a lot of experience of them. I thought they sounded quite clean and crunchy, but that might be my personal taste and not somebody else's. So but they're not kind of high value pickups really. It's really as much as, you know, whether you like them or not. They're sound wise, if they're good for you, then they're good, and that's the end of it. So yeah, so having cleaned everything up, having re-profiled the frets, which went okay, and then having polished it all out with the various grades of sandpaper, and cleaned up all the bits and pieces, I've packed out or slightly adjusted the knobs so that they don't fall off. We've got the bridges back on and cleaned, same playing height. Everything's back to where it was, or better I should say, and now it's a case of getting the strings on, stretching all the slack out of them, doing a bit of graphite in the slots, and testing it, and make sure that the nut slots are free moving, free moving, and not catching anywhere, because that's really important that we don't end up with any gripping slots. It's a sort of critical part of making sure tuning stays stable. I checked underneath, maybe I said anyway, I checked underneath the pickups and, the tuners, and they are Wilkinsons, so they are Wilkinsons, and they haven't been, there are no other holes, so it's had these on since the start, which possibly nails down closer to what the guitar is or was. Having said that, I still don't know every Chinese made or Korean made guitar that comes fitted with Wilkinson bits and bobs. I was surprised even when I found out that Harley Bentons more and more come with Wilkinson stuff on them. I mean, it just I didn't quite notice when that started happening, that's all. Pleasantly surprised, because it's usually good quality kit by comparison to what could be on there. Anyway, so I declare that by the end of this I don't know what this guitar began life as, and I think things are pointing to it being a Korean made guitar, possibly, you know, by the manufacturer of the pickups, and yeah, the Sung Il, I think it is Sung Il thing on the bottom of the bridge. But that's all I can say about it. Other than that, we've now levelled the frets, which were significantly uneven, which is not a great testimony to the guitar manufacturer when the frets are so badly out. But I've levelled them off so that we've now got a decent playing action out of it, and having polished it all out, I'm now going to have a chance to stretch all the strings and then have a little play of it and see, we'll have a look and see how it sounds and feels. But it's obviously, I can tell already it's a huge improvement on what it was. And it's also got a new nut, which is nice, so no longer that plastic thing. Kids are having fun next door. It's the summer holidays, as you can tell. So I'm not going to bore you with all of this, but I'll cut off so you don't have to listen to what's going on. But the thing to do right now at this stage is, apart from putting on the scratch plates and things, is to stretch out all the strings, and it's getting rid of all the excess slack in your new strings, or any strings, is probably one of the most important thing you can do to ensure enjoyable playing, or to ensure you'll enjoy playing your guitar, because the slack in the strings will stay in there for a huge amount of time, and it will continue to release all the way through the life of the guitar, or the life of the strings, when you least want it to, and it will continue to that's oil. Oops. It'll continue to put the guitar out of tune as soon as you bend a note, so it's something you really don't want. And the only way to get around it is to stretch all of the unwanted stretch out of it very early on, like now, and it takes a period of time. So I'll show you quickly. I'm just going to get these well, I would get these back in if they were anywhere near that's in order, but yeah, so I repeat this quite a lot, but a lot of people think that tuning has to do with the tuners, and it's kind of logical. You'd be forgiven for thinking that, but it doesn't. The tuner's purpose is just to get the guitar up to pitch and make adjustments. The tuners, no matter how cheap they are, never actually shed tension. They never unwind and cause detuning problems. The tuning problems are caused by the following two things predominantly. One, by unreleased stretch in your strings, which can be significant and can be there a year after you put them on if you haven't wrung it all out physically and deliberately. And secondly, by tight nut slots, which will hold the strings as you tune up or as you bend them, and then release the stretch at different points in time when you least want it to. And all of those two things are the biggest culprits. A third one isn't technically really a tuning problem, it's an intonation problem, and that's when you have too high an action over the first fret, which I always go on about. And if you have that, as I mentioned early on, it makes notes played down at the open chords end of things slightly sharp, because you're having to press too hard to get the strings to actually hit the frets. That puts those fretted notes sharp, and which set against the other notes which are in tune, it makes the whole thing, the chords sound awful. And your experience is that the guitar either won't go in tune or won't stay in tune, is usually how people describe it. But to all intents and purposes you can't get it in tune, or it won't play in tune, and so to your mind it's not in tune and it's horrible. So we've taken care of the slots, the nut slots, and we're going to also put, in a minute, put some, if I can find it, put a bit of graphite powder in there as well, which appears to have gone for a walk wherever I had the tin of graphite stuff, which isn't surprising because I keep moving things around. In which case I will put a little bit in here, since I can't be bothered to search for the thing again. Yeah, so we've taken care of the nut slots, that's one of the biggest culprits, and we're now going to take care of the excess slack in the strings, and we do that by grabbing the strings and manually using thumb and forefinger to kind of pressure just between these points to bend out and stretch out all the slack that exists in these strings right the way down to, and if you can, the other side of the hideous monstrosity that they call a tunematic bridge. So you want to just keep bringing out all that slack up to and including the stuff. You can't really do the stuff on the post. That's why we want as little wound around there as possible. Enough to hold the string firmly, but not so much that we store up slack in the winds that go around the post. Anyway, so treat it all as, you know, get to every bit of it if you can and stretch it. Be careful with the thinner strings, they can break when you're doing this, but again, you have to pay that price once in a while. So at this point I've just got the strings loose and I'm doing the first stretch. Then I put go tuning. So at this point I get the first hint of what it's like to play now. Okay, and then go back and stretch them again. So no substitute for doing it, and I would recommend you do it 3 or 4 times, especially, certainly if you're going to play in a band or with other people. Anyway, if you're just playing on your own, because there's nothing worse than a guitar that won't sound in tune, it spoils the enjoyment. And also, particularly I think really important if you're selling a guitar to someone else and you've changed the strings for them, that's very nice. But you don't want the first impression of the guitar to come out of the box and then just to keep going out of tune every time they play a chord. So you really want to do it to stay in tune from the moment they get it out of the box to create a good impression. Now if this does break, by the way, I've got a 9 and a spare 9 and a 10. I don't want it to break, of course. So you can hear the difference there, how much it detuned. Now I'm listening for pings at the nut, which I just heard, which means that one's a little bit tight. So the D string needs a bit of sandpaper. Okay, so before I go any further, I'm going to just get a bit of sandpaper and attack that D string with a blade, wherever I can find a blade, and drop the D out and just get in there with the blade, and maybe the back side of the blade to begin with, and yeah, that's about right, and just get in there, and I'm avoiding hitting the bottom of the slot because I don't want to widen that, to lower it any further. I'm just working on the sides a bit to give it that extra space. Tune it up again, and then listen at the same time, or listen and feel for any pinging. That feels good. Now what I'm going to do while I'm at this point, I'm going to drop off each string one by one and put a little bit of graphite underneath to give it some lubrication now, on top of the fact that we know we've got the nut slots pretty much the right size and free running, but the graphite is just a little bit of extra help to keep this running smooth. But it's not a substitute. If you have nut slots that are pinging graphite isn't going to solve it. You've got a problem if you've got nut slots that are pinging. Don't think you can just chuck a load of graphite in and that's going to... It may marginally help, but you're still going to have tuning issues. The pinging is the dead giveaway, right? You need to take the time to get the sandpaper and be very, very careful to, if you're going to widen the slots, you've got to widen it without lowering them any further, and that's the important bit. And then all the time that you're doing this stretching and tuning, you're listening out, being willing, even though you don't want to hear it, you're being willing to hear the pinging sound, because it's better you hear it now so you can get rid of it. Okay, so I'm going to blow away the extra graphite there, and then guess what? Back to stretching. And this should be, this will be the last of the manual stretches I'll do, and after this I'll do some other stretches and some string bends to kind of wring out the last drops of slack. But once you've done this, you don't have to do it again. That's a nice thing. It's out of your way. You'll be amazed at how long this slack will stay in the strings and come out. I told the story a couple of times, but just recently somebody sold me a guitar that they'd had on the peg for about 1.5 years, and they played it a bit, but not much. But you know, it'd been there for 1.5 years, been occasionally played, and I got it into the workshop and I put a big bend into it and it went straight out of tune because there was still slack stored there. 1.5 years after they bought it. It seems almost impossible, but there it is. You need to expect that. Expect it and do what it takes to get rid of it. Now you could hear already from that the amount that went out of tune just then. I'm going to do another stretch because that was quite a lot of detuning as a result of that stretch. So while it detunes that much, you know that you're not yet close to you know, having wrung it all out, unfortunately. But can you imagine how much force I'm putting into this, and it's only just getting rid of it all. And if you didn't put this much force into it, you would just be releasing it song by song, gig by gig, rehearse by rehearse, and it just expresses itself as going out of tune all the time. And that's the one thing a guitar doesn't need to do, is go out of tune. You know, you can forgive poor pickups, you can compensate a bit with a decent amp, you can forgive a decent amp and, you know, make a loud noise, you can forgive the way a guitar looks, but if it's out of tune, there is no point at all. So I'm now at that sort of stage where it's starting to stabilise, and I'm going to put it on a strap, and I'm going to plug it in and do a few more bends and things, and I have it in the playing position when I come to do the intonation now, which is pretty much the last stage in this. So here we have our trusty Roland amp. I know it's not the greatest amp in the world to demo the sound of anything, but it's not really about demoing the sound actually. It's just more about just getting the intonation right and making sure everything's working the way it should. So and also just stabilising the tuning as well. So yeah, I'm noticing the neck pickup is quite a long way below the level of the bridge pickup, so I don't know, Dave, if that's what you like, or whether I may just set it a little higher for you and see if that's how you like it. Clean sound, some volume. so some of the stretches I still want to do are kind of upward stretches like this, and then some bends, but then I'm going to be pretty much all there. By that time you've seen how long we've spent pulling out all of the slack. I can't hit the right string. Okay, so the last thing I want to do some bends. Hurt your fingers. See, it's getting that. That's pretty stable. A couple more bends upwards. I don't think we've got any more stretch to wring out of these strings, which is great because from now on you don't have to worry about it much. But you can just keep going until it's gone. That's what I would recommend. How about that, see? Tiny bit, but not much. It, but you can always go backwards if you don't. Okay, it's only a little bit, but strap. This is the last bit of stretching I will do, I promise you. I shall do no more. Pretty stable. See that tiny little action tweak that I just did there, just freed up that last little bit of choked fret that we still had left in there. Now we have an infinite bend, as far as your fingers can handle it. Well, remember we didn't have any bend at all in the first place. Got one last check on the height. Look in the light. Show me the light. Okay, just on 1.5 and on the side. And 1.1. Just going to tweak a fraction higher on this bit. Stop there. Go back to tuning it. almost done. Last thing we're going to do is check the intonation and what was I going to say? Oh yes, when we do that using a tuner, and the nightmare of the Tuner-matic bridge as our device for checking. So let me just get up the tuner on my phone, and what we do, yeah, okay, come on. What we do is we make sure it's in tune first, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to get the tuner up and we're going to tune each string to the harmonic, 12th fret harmonic, and then we're going to play the 12th fret fretted, and the two notes should be the same. So for example, okay, there's the E, which is slightly sharp. Let's see if we can pull it a bit. There we go. Now if this string is the correct length for this neck, the fretted note will be the same as the pinged harmonic on the 12th. Slightly sharp but not far off. Let's try a few others. Sharp means it's too short, means we have to lengthen the string. Now, the reality is you do this differently each time. It's not a fixed or not a dependable thing, it's subjective, variable. So I do several, take the average. Somebody else may finger it differently. That's good. Slightly sharp, which means it needs to come away a bit, which means I'm going to go counterclockwise with my little adjuster screw, and that pushes the saddle away and makes it longer. Sometimes it sticks, so you have to push it. It also changes the tuning, so you need to retune to test it again. Okay, so Dave, there we go, and oops, everybody else, anybody else watching, here we have, and here we did have Dave's very pretty Les Paul copy with a little bit of a home added Gibson decal and so on, but nicely done, and it's a Korean looking copy. I thought Chinese to begin with, but it seems to be Korean. The pickups are Korean, the bridge bit is Korean, so why not Korea? And it's got Wilkinson tuners on as a sort of start point. So we have a nice action now down at the first fret. We have a kind of compromise action at the top. It's better than it was, it's lower than it was, it's easier to play. Frets are all nicely levelled, and so there are no choke notes that we had before. Well, before we couldn't play any bends at all. Now this one, I raised the action right at the end there just slightly so that we could get a full two-tone bend out of this. I'm a stickler for getting full two-tone bends out of it. So in order to get that, I went a tiny smidgen higher than I normally would go. But really it all points back to the extremely uneven frets that we began with, and there was a lot of levelling to do to get it to play as well as it does. But there we go. We've put a new nut in, we've cleaned it all up, we've checked it all out, we've cleaned underneath all these bits, we've fixed the knobs back on, and everything's looking and sounding great. So looking forward to boxing this back up and getting it back up to Dave. Hope you enjoyed spending a bit of time on this one. Fairly kind of standard setup, no horrible surprises, which I'm pleased to say. So a good solid setup of a nice guitar, and the whole thing, coming back to the issue of what things are worth. Things are worth you know, keeping if they're worth keeping. If you like the way this plays, then you keep it and you play it. And now, having put a nice setup on it, it should be much more fun to play, and hopefully you'll enjoy it for years to come. Okay, so thanks for spending the hours with me, and we'll see you again soon on Relove Guitars. Bye for now.